I've figured it out. I may be late to the party, but I'm fairly certain most of you haven't figured it out. There are some people that have figured it out and are being quiet about it, but I've figured it out. I have put the pieces together as to, and it's not why you think, as to why you see 300-pound women in underwear ads. Why you see companies going woke, quote unquote. Why you see Down syndrome girls in Victoria's Secret ads. Somebody should go to hell for that one. Why you see 100% of the ads with gay couples or interracial couples, even though that's less than 5% of the actual population. But first, take care of a couple things. This isn't the last video I'll make on this channel, but this is probably getting near the end. Channel's getting too big. I think we're at 6,400 people. We have a really high click-through rate and a really high watch rate. It's funny because if you look at other people and they have, let's make it easy. Let's say they have 10,000 subscribers. They often only get 10% of the views. So they genuinely only have 10% real subscribers, and the rest are either fake or one time or the you follow me, I follow you crap, which I don't do. And generally here, we have 25% watch rate for videos that are topical, which is really good. And we have a really high comment section, which is surprising since I've banned so many people. The funny part about banning people, I banned several people, and they keep watching. Got into it with them over one thing or another, and they keep watching. I even saw one yesterday who literally copied a video that I did, like took a video of it with their phone and then put it on their channel. And what was funny to me about that one was that somebody sent it to me because I don't follow everybody, but there aren't enough hours in the day. I know everybody thinks they're important, honestly. How many hours are there in the day to watch videos? I can barely make them. And this one's going to be long probably, but yeah, there were like 10 other sources to get the video that they copied, but instead they played mine, recorded it, and then put it on their channel. And the way that I knew that it was mine specifically was I had covered my camera with a torn Post-it note, and I recognized the Post-it note in the video. In fact, I had a viewer, a subscriber, recognize the Post-it note from the video, and they sent me an email, and they said, hey, oh, well, that's interesting, because I banned that person months ago. They said that I sucked, and yet here they are. Let me tell you something. If you think I suck, and I ban you, and you keep coming back, that doesn't make you a hater. That makes you a fan. If you email me, I'll send you a signed autograph for $20. I'll even answer questions if you send me some money through PayPal. $45 an hour is the rate beginning, because I don't answer questions for free. If you're good at something, don't do it for free. I don't consult for free. So anyway, I've figured it out. And it's kind of like, if you've never seen it, there are some classic movies you have to see. Like Cool Hand Luke, Blade Runner, Planet of the Apes. I'd suggest the first 3 of the original 5 in the 60s and 70s. But the first 3 are really good. And the very end of the first one, I'm sure you've all seen this clip, but you might not have seen the movie. Charlton Heston's riding down the beach on a horseback, and then he sees that he sees that the Statue of Liberty is buried in sand, and it finally occurs to him, because he plays an astronaut, that he didn't go to an ape planet. He went forward in time. And the Statue of Liberty buried in sand makes it all make sense, that there was a nuclear holocaust. And he just maniacally starts laughing at the end because it all makes sense. There have been a few times in my life when I have laughed or giggled like that. Just because when you're always reading literature from futurists and people that are looking far out, and I don't mean far out by months or years, I mean decades. It's really interesting when you come across a new idea, because there's so little that's new out there. And there are a couple times that I did that. One was when I got my first email account back when we were using Netscape, or Netscrape as we used to call it. And the year was 1993. And once I went to a few web pages, and this is back when the internet was wide open, I just sat there and laughed for about 5 minutes because I knew what that meant and what that would mean for the future. More recently, it's happened once, and that was when I got my night vision for the first time. And I sat there and I looked at the stars multiply, maybe 300-fold over what the human eye can perceive. And I just sat there and laughed as I looked up. And then it happened again this week. It was like you got to the end of the yellow brick road and you pulled the curtain back and you saw how Oz runs. So we've talked before, and there are other systems out there about social credit scores. And we've talked about how China can just, with a flip of a button, if you don't have a high enough social credit score, it's like a credit score, but for how you are a good member of society, they grade you. Do you make the right posts? Do you like the right kind of posts? Do you associate with the right type of people? Do you spend money at the proper places? Are you not spending money at the places that they don't like? Is your brother a criminal? Are you sending lots of text messages to him? Well, you're going to lower your score. And if your score is low enough, they shut off transportation to people. It was trains, planes, and automobiles there for a while. I know they like bikes, but it's tough on the Ho Chi Minh Trail to take a bike. Maybe 50 miles. I just took a drink, and I'm sure somebody will write in and complain about the drink. Tough tit, said the kit, but the milk's still fresh. So, social credit scores. And we talked about how they would apply that here. And it's kind of dovetailing with the travel pass that's going to come out of the virus, and it's going to come out of the global warming with carbon credits. Let's file that for later. And what's interesting is they've already got it in place. And in fact, some people are already assigning you a social credit score. It's just not a national thing yet. You don't get to opt in. They're already collecting the data because you like to play, Wordle or whatever the hell you've downloaded and accepted. So you've given them the permissions. Half of you gave them the permissions just by purchasing your phone. And the beautiful part about it for them is it's not, okay, I'll act good going forward and I'll get a good score. No, it's retroactive because they've got all that data. So what did you do in the past 10 years? Because that's going to factor into your score, right? And you get a social credit score. And they will judge you for things like loans, whether you get a loan, what your interest rate will be. If you hang with the wrong people, you're likely to not pay the loan back on time, which means you need a higher interest rate. Really? What's funny is in a world built on equity, you'd think, well, we'd all have the same interest rate. That's what we'd be working towards. No. Oh, precious child of spring. That is the conundrum that you'll find yourself in. That's the cognitive dissonance. The hypocrites on the other side will play both sides of the fence because it's not about equity. If you've heard equity, That's the selling point. That's the marketing. If you've heard, we all want an equal outcome, that's the selling point. But it totally made sense to me after this week. I figured it out. And this is why we have retarded people in commercials now. And you'd think, preface with that, you show me enough gay people in commercial, you think, well, those commercials are to influence me. They've always been to influence me, right? Have a Coke and a smile. Have it your way. What is it? Big Macs. Everything out there. It's all for you. Whatever just do it. So, choice of a new generation. I don't know how many I can remember. They've been burned into my brain. So why wouldn't commercials with people in them that don't look and act like me and don't have my values not be aimed toward me, when every commercial since the dawn of man was aimed at me? And if you look at it logically, I've been seeing commercials for almost 6, 7, maybe 10 years now with a gay couple in every commercial. Not that I got anything against gays, I don't. But why such a high percentage? They're not out there in a high percentage. Are you trying to influence me? Are you trying to make me accept them? I already do. Are you trying to make me gay? It's not going to happen. I don't know how many shows you can show me with a tranny in them. I'm not going to go schedule the operation. It's not going to happen. Someone has to ask yourself, they know this, why? On the other side, you've got the go woke, go broke, I'm never going to buy again. Let me tell you something. After this week and what I've seen, most of these companies have focus grouped that to death. And what they have determined is that you will buy again. Maybe not you personally, maybe not the people here, but in general, sales don't take a hit over the long term, and in fact, they grow. Everybody kind of puts it aside because it's the next company's turn to go woke, and you forget about company A because you're on to company B, and then you're on to company C, or there's a Ukraine situation, right? And what they've found is it really doesn't hurt them. You can point to Dick's. Dick's isn't bankrupt, and Dick's is doing pretty well right now, regardless of taking deadly black guns off the wall. So, why then? What would they do this for? Well, just like social credit score, there is something called ESG. ESG it stands for environmental, social, and governance. ESG scores are given in those three areas, which are then combined through some secret math into one score for a company, and it judges them on those three attributes and how good of a world partner they are. That score is then used by activist investors and some other normal investors. I've touched on this before, heads of mutual funds, etc., for which stocks to include in those mutual funds. So the score isn't aimed at the individual investor. If you're a regular schlep making under anywhere from $30,000 to $300,000, $300,000, you're still considered a regular schlep in their eyes. That's how rich these people are and these fund managers are. We're talking about people that sometimes control $1 billion or more, at least several hundred million in a fund in a fund. So you ain't it. You're not the target. You're not the target of the score. You're not the target of the commercials. What's interesting about this to me is that there has been a great, misinterpretation that by you, that you are the target of the commercial. And companies haven't cleared that up, and you have to ask yourself why. Well, the why is because then they would be exposing themselves as not really caring about the things they're showing in the commercials, and that would lower their ESG score. So I have been a participant I'll say, in an ESG audit this week. And I've got more to do, but it was interesting because I was invited, voluntold, that I would be doing this, answering questions and providing data to a liaison who comes up with the ESG score and then presents it to the ESG board. Now, let's back up a second. If you think of Underwriters Laboratories, UL, which is a stamp on almost everything that's electronic, or you think of Good Housekeeping, where you get the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. It used to be a good thing back in the day. For test kits for food, and chemistry, there is the AOAC stamp of approval. All of these groups, at one time or another, looked at the field and basically said, we need to monetize this. We can create an industry out of thin air. UL did this. AOAC did this. Good Housekeeping did this. Hey, you send us your test kits for salmonella. We're going to test them independently. We're going to verify and validate that they work, that the sensitivity, specificity, the results are what you say they are, by an independent body not affiliated with you. You send us that. You pay us this fee. And then when we publish our report, if it passes, and they almost always pass, if it passes, you can use the AOAC stamp of approval in your marketing literature and on your label. And that will give you a leg up over your competitors. And pretty soon what you find is that as a company, you're forced to, because all of your competitors did it, and you're the only one sitting there without the stupid label. So you got to pay. So these people that came up with the AOAC stuff weren't needed. It wasn't mandated. It wasn't a law that it be in place. But the American Organization of Analytical Chemistry decided that they would perform this function, created a need out of thin air. That's marketing 101. You convince people they need something they don't need. And then you were just kind of through peer pressure and lost sales forced to join, right? That's how it works. It's worked like that in several other areas, and there are several other groups that do this very same thing. So in 2011, along comes this group, and they say, you know what we're going to do with all the environmentalism? Just like carbon credits. Somebody looked at global warming and decided, hey, carbon credits. If you've got a company, let's say you're a big tax firm, you don't really have a large carbon footprint, right? However, when you have ESG scores based on what your carbon footprint is like, you need to have some carbon footprint to either reduce, or you need to have some sort of outreach in the community to get your E-score on your ESG up. So what do you do in that case? I'll come back to that in a second because it's kind of clever. So in 2011, this group, ESG, decided, just like carbon credits and just like people are trading credits now, hey, we'll do what all these other groups have done. We'll make this ESG score. We'll go to the activist investors. We'll say this means that the company is woke. This means that they care about the environment. They care about the social aspect, and they care about the governance of their employees and fair pay and equity. And we'll sign these scores. A little side trip, what you guys don't know, is back in the day, the head of the largest porn studio, Vivid Video, the guy got into a plane ride, and he was sitting in a seat next to the guy that had Netflix, and he was talking to him about business practices, and he learned a few tips and tricks, just like this, just like getting your seal of approval and everything. He said, I'm having trouble in the industry. I want to know what you guys do. They talked a little bit. He went back. Next thing you know, he puts up a big billboard in this parking lot. And what he's doing is he's listing out the porn videos rated 1 to 10, best to worst, to promote sales. Best to worst according to him. And what he was doing, and he was in the business, aside from making porn videos, had a second business of sending videos out like Netflix. He found a way by doing that the billboard was seen by all the actors and actresses. It was seen by them who related to their companies. And they said, well, why isn't this title that we made last month on there? It's a great title. Why isn't it in the top 10? And the guy says, hey, I haven't seen it. Don't have your product. And they're like, well, maybe if we send you 100, will you have seen it then and get it on the board? And he's like, yeah. So before you know it, he didn't even have to buy inventory to ship out to people. People were competing to get on that board because they like seeing the dopamine rush in their brain of seeing their name on the board. So these people started sending him product that he could then send out and rent as his side gig, and he was making a ton of money. Also, they could get the seal of approval of being on that one board in West Hollywood. So if you go back to this group in 2011, they looked at this and said, hey, let's make a group. Let's assign a score. Let's create the market. And then before you know it, once we get enough people on board, other people will be forced to. Now you're at a point where you've got two types of investors. You've got the individual activist investor who tries to hold you to the score and make you improve if you don't meet it every year. And then you've got the laissez-faire, hands-off, mild investor who just wants a good environmental investment and picks a mutual group. But to be in there, you've got to have stocks with a high ESG score. The dirty little secret about companies is that once they go public, the customer is no longer the customer. When you think, let's go with Dick's, let's go with Nike, let's go with Amazon, let's go with anybody. If you are giving them money and buying a product and you think you are the customer, you're an idiot. You are not the customer. And you're saying to yourself, well, of course I am. I gave the money. I'm the No. Once they go public, meaning once they have stocks publicly traded, the customer then becomes the shareholder. If you're making shoes and you've got to get the materials, you've got somebody who assembles them and puts them together, and then you've got somebody who distributes them, and then somebody who sells them at the end. That is the lifeline. That is the chain of events for the shoe sale, right? Once they go public, it doesn't end there. You, the customer, are added onto that chain to make the profits, and the profit is then distributed to people that buy the stocks. And these large companies view the life chain then as ending with the person that buys the stock. The person that buys the shoe is just a means to an end. They don't really matter. Their thoughts, hopes, fears don't matter. And if they don't like what you're making now, your marketing department will dream up some other bullshit that they'll buy later. But from that point on, once they're public, the investor becomes the endpoint. The investor is the customer, because all they care about is earnings per share and stocks, right? Stock price. So these companies, these boards, are looking around and they say, all these other companies are getting ESG scores and their stocks are going up. We're not even on the list. Just like they're driving through West Hollywood and they see, Debbie does Donovan twice. And they go, well, why isn't our product on that board? Why isn't our product on the ESG list? Stockholders are ignoring us. You think they care about the $2 profit at the customer level? Or do they care about the $2 billion they just lost because they weren't on that list? And before you say, well, there's power in numbers, you know what? I'll just refer you to all the 3%ers and militia members who haven't got off their couch. I did a video yesterday that had a tripod with wasn't a 50 cal, but it was a large gun mounted to a BMW. If we found a way to mount that to a couch, maybe we'd get something done. So that is how it works. And then when you see this, what's funny is I was answering a lot of the E stuff just because I do has waste and I do packaging and various other things I don't need to get into, but I can answer the E. And then the governance, we deal with safety and workers' comp and things like that. So we can answer the G. But the social aspect is interesting because usually that's ran by HR. And over the past year or two, we have suddenly started doing, how shall we say, woke trainings. I'll just leave it at that. And you say to yourself as you go through it, okay, we're having a woke training, but we're in Ohio. We're in a small town in Ohio. This town is 99% white. Our employees are 99% white. They've got Midwestern values. And then when I'm behind closed doors or I'm at parties off work and I hear the people that are higher up, I know that their values are really very similar. For the most part, they ain't woke. Put it that way. And you wonder, for 2 years, why are we doing these trainings? Why do we care? We're not publicizing this to anybody. We're not doing anything with this. And honestly, the people that are not white are getting a little fed up because they feel like there's a spotlight on them. So, when you've got like several hundred white people and 3 black guys, the black guys get a little tired of the spotlight. I could tell stories about that because, God, there's some complaining from them. And I can understand because it brings the focus on you every time we have one. So I'm thinking to myself, the higher ups don't really care about this. Why are we doing it? Now all of a sudden it all makes sense. It's to check the box on the ESG score. It's not that they really care. It's not helping the customer that buys the product. It's helping the stock price. That's what it's all about. And it should have been following the money to begin with, because that's where it goes. So what's funny to me is if you actually think, as I have, that the aim of the marketing in the world is to change the world and to change hearts and minds, they may change some. I mean, marketing does work. It's called programming for a reason, right? Another drink, because it's been 27 minutes. You can watch this on double speed. If you've watched it to this point on single speed, pro tip, watch it on double speed. The annoying voice is even more annoying, but whatever. So you're looking around and you're like, now it makes sense. Now I know why there are retarded girls in Victoria's Secret. Now I know why there are 300-pound models and everybody's acting like it's not a problem. Now I know why everybody's gay in every single commercial. Now I know why there's a woman with a beard prancing around on TV trying to sell me car insurance. And everybody's acting like it's normal. They're acting like it's normal because the executives have to put on this face and act like it's normal to get their good score. And they're going to be, you'd think they could do it once for the audit and leave. No. There's a upkeep fee, just like Underwriters Laboratories, just like Good Housekeeping, just like AOAC. So every year, you got to get more woke. Why? Because you have to submit the data of your wokeness, of your ESG. And if you submit the data of your wokeness and it goes down, your score goes down. But if it stays the same or goes up, it goes up. And your ranking changes as a company. So everybody else is trying to be more woke to move up on the list, right? So it's a constant struggle. So no matter how woke you are this year, you damn well better believe you're going to be more woke next year. And again, it's funny because, when the farmer goes to sell his herd, he doesn't ask the herd how it feels about it. He just sells the herd. You're not the customer, you're the herd. And herds don't get to vote, so you're outvoted. It all makes sense.